¿Qué lo que mi gente? What is up? Welcome back to my channel and to another VBX Femina Speaks video where you guys choose the topic of my video. Now, some of you guys may be aware that Dascha Polanco has been in a bit of hot water following a response to a tweet by John Leguizamo, where they were talking about the lack of Latinx representation in the Emmys, and I would also go on to say in Hollywood. Now, this is the tweet which John made, and then I'm going to show you the response that Dascha made. So John, who is Colombian, I believe, basically tweeted a picture of an article saying Emmy 2020, Black nominees gained ground, Latino representation still abysmal. So he tweeted, why can't we Latinx have a piece of the pie? We are the largest ethnic group in America and missing as if we didn't exist. So to that, Dascha replied, if it's only us speaking up on it, no one cares. It's the silence from those that fight for equality, but only their equality. Diversity, but diverse enough to include thyself. That mentality of, as long as I'm good, I don't see a damn thing. Now, upon first glance, the part where she says it's those that fight for equality, but only their equality. I don't know about y'all, but I think to most people, it came off as if she's talking about Black people, specifically Black Americans, because within the United States, which is the group that has fought the hardest for equality, it has been Black people, but it sounds as if she's saying, you know, if we Latinos talk about our issues, nobody cares. And the fact that Black people aren't also speaking up for our issues is a problem. Now, that is just my interpretation. It may not be that she meant it like that, but that's how a lot of people took it. And of course, many people, both Black and Latino, took to Twitter and to Instagram to express their thoughts. And here are some of those comments. Now, following the slew of comments that Dascha received online, she did come back with a video further clarifying what she meant, and this is what she had to say.
Hey guys, I wanted to clarify on the tweet regarding the Latinx snubbed in the Emmys. It was not shading our Black community. Blackness is in my DNA as a Dominican, as an Afro-Latina, as a whole, okay? What I'm referring to is we cannot sit here and say we are snubbed and write these articles and all these kind of things when we ourselves are not doing our due diligence to create the work, to create the opportunities. We can't claim, oh, let's claim diversity, but when you're good, then everything else is okay. And diversity doesn't have to be about race. It has to be about pay. It has to be about positions. It has to be about equality. Equality means equality across the board. It has to be transgendered, LGBTQ, and so on. Thank you.
Now, Dascha had also made this tweet yesterday where she said, guys, when I speak of those die, I speak of the people in the positions of power, decision maker. I am such a huge supporter of inclusion. Yes, finally, we are seeing change. That's the silver lining, and I celebrate it. Talk about it all the time. BTS is where it needs to start. Now, me personally, I'm not quite sure how her initial tweet would have been referring to people in positions of power, which in this situation, I would say is mainly white people. I don't see white people as being the ones that are usually fighting for equality. So I don't know. To me, it does sound more like she would have been talking about Black people, but that's just my opinion. She says that she wasn't. So depending on who you think she was talking about is how you're going to interpret her tweet. So this whole situation brought up multiple different conversations. The first one being Latinos apparently trying to piggyback off of, you know, the movements and the things that Black people fight for. Now, I will say that Latinos as a group here in the United States for the most part, we have not mobilized and really come together to fight certain issues that we face the same way Black people have. Like that, I do have to admit. That's just the truth of the situation. Now, I do think that we've gotten better with it, but there's definitely room for improvement. However, with the recent, Black Lives Matter and all that, there were a lot of Latinos that were, speaking up for and writing for Black people. So I do feel to an extent, if we're going to have like this Black and brown unity type of thing going on, then yes, it would be nice for Black people to also help us and help us speak out on our issues as well. Like it shouldn't be just one-sided. Now, that is just my opinion. You may agree or disagree with that, but one thing that I do think we can agree on is that the things that African Americans have fought for in their fight for inclusion has definitely opened the way for Latinos to also fight for those things as well. Now, one of the reasons people were coming for Dascha and why they were disappointed and upset with her is because she constantly says, I'm an Afro-Latina. She claims all this pride in her Afro-Latinidad. So people were kind of looking at her, well, if you identify as Afro-Latina, which should mean that you identify as Black, because let's keep it real. Some people say, oh, I'm Afro-Latina, blah, 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 but they will never actually identify as Black, Some people, they take the fact that they have some African ancestry and they want to claim the label, but in real life, they would never identify as Black. But anyway, that's a whole different story for another day. But they were like, so if you claim to be Afro-Latina, then, shouldn't you see yourselves in these Black people that are getting nominated like they're your people too? Now, I will say that I think this situation also kind of highlights the somewhat, at times, complicatedness and like the duality of being Black and being Latino, because it's like, well, are you Black first or are you Latina first, Now, personally, I don't think that you should have to choose one over the other because you are both. Like, you're literally both. But, being that she is someone that is so vocal and she's kind of like an activist when it comes to, Afro-Latinos and things like that, I can definitely see why some people would be looking at her a type of way when she does speak so much on, our Blackness and things like that. So they would have expected her to view, more Black people being nominated as a win for her as well, because again, she identifies as Black, I think. So some people kind of took this whole thing as like, okay, so you're only Afro-Latina when convenient. Now, you guys, do I think that Dascha is anti-Black? No, I do not. I don't believe at all that she is. I just think that in this second, should she have thought twice before tweeting that tweet? Yes. But, my opinion, I think this is one of those situations in which she did see herself as different from Black people, and it just came out that way. Now, the second big conversation that has come out of this is how Black Latinos are barely ever accounted for when it comes to Latino representation. Because, and this goes back to John's initial tweet, and a lot of people also said this in response to Dasha's tweet, and they were like, yo, did y'all forget that Jarrell Jerome, who is Dominican descent, he literally just won an Emmy last year. It wasn't that long ago. But y'all, does his win not count for, a Latino win or Latino representation because of the fact that he's Black? And this is another thing that we have to be honest about. A lot of Latinos, when they talk about Latino representation, they're talking about mestizo Latinos. That just is what it is. Okay, Black Latinos are rarely seen as the face or, they're not seen as being representative of Latinos as a whole. But the truth is that they've always been there, and they have been, in a lot of movies, they have been winning Emmys. But the thing is that Black Latinos tend to be grouped in with Black people or Black Americans, not Latinos. Now, for those of you that saw the collab video I recently did with Sid and Pretty, I mentioned in that video how a lot of times Black Latinos are cast as African Americans. They're not given Latino roles because they don't fit the description or whatever of what a quote unquote Latino looks like. So that, I feel, adds to the issue as well, because if they're not being cast as Latinos and being portrayed as Latinos, they're not going to be seen as such. People aren't going to look at them like this person represents Latinos or is at least part of the representation of Latinos. And so a lot of times these Black Latinos kind of fly under the radar and people don't even find out they're Latino until later on, case in point.
Everybody think I'm from all these different countries, but I'm really from Panama. That's a fact, you know what I'm saying? Big Pana, Colón, Wapen Loco, que sopa, como tú estás, man.
Now, the matter of Afro-Latinos not being given Latino roles, I mean, that's a whole another issue in and of itself. But I do think that we as a community, especially us Latinos, need to be better educated about who is Latino and not assume that because somebody is dark-skinned or because they're Black, that they're not part of our community and that their wins are not our wins, because they most definitely are. They're a win for Black people, of course, but they're a win for Latinos as well, and we can't forget that. So that was it for this video, guys. I would definitely like to hear you guys' thoughts and opinions on anything that I discussed in this video. Don't forget to give a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll check you all on the next one. Bye!